Okay. My Healthy Supplies, which I think is Luke, I think. Anyway, right. Our butchers do duck eggs. Would you say they are superior to chicken eggs?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
That's not an answer. Yeah, they are. They're higher in almost everything for a number of reasons. Predominantly, probably because they're bigger, but the iron levels are considerably higher. The phosphorus, potassium, the sodium, the zinc, copper, so on and so forth. And I think duck eggs tend to be cleaner in regards to the foods that they consume. Nothing wrong with chicken eggs. If all you have access to is chicken eggs, then fantastic. Most chicken eggs are grain-fed, unless you can find a local farmer who feeds or keeps them wild, and they are grass-fed. They are available to find, but I wouldn't be put off consuming a chicken egg in lieu of eating duck eggs, or even if you know that they are consuming grains. Eggs are incredibly high in many nutrients, one being choline, which is essential for the production of acetylcholine, which is an important neurotransmitter. Choline is essential for many things within the body, methylation being one of them. These are systems and pathways within the body that we need to live. Choline, as we know, is essential for bile acid production. So eggs are always a winner for me, regardless of where they come from. I do love chicken eggs. I do love duck eggs also, but I tend to move between them, and it depends on availability. I've been eating eggs quite a lot this week, but prior to that, I've probably been about 2 or 3 weeks since having some. When I do consume them, I could be consuming 6 to 8 a day, which isn't a problem, providing you don't have an allergy to them. The compound which causes this in some people is the overmucoid, which can cause an allergic reaction, but they are few and far between. Quite often when we think we have some sort of reaction to eggs, it's usually another compound within the diet. So, I mean, I would always try to keep eggs in where you can, but whether they're duck or chicken, eggs are always a winner for me.
Yeah, it's a great answer. And also, I just want to pick up on the allergy thing, because there are some people that can't tolerate eggs or chicken eggs, but can tolerate duck eggs. Yeah. So it's something, if you want to tentatively try, if you don't do well with chicken eggs, just do the normal sort of test, a little bit of the duck egg on your lip or something to see if it blows up a bit. And if it doesn't itch or cause any sort of irritation, then you could try a small amount, a very small amount. Yes, you will get slightly higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids, and slightly more protein, fat, and cholesterol, of course. But they are just a little bit more rich, I suppose, for want of a better word. I like them very much indeed. Some countries, I was quite surprised, because the meal plan I offer, I do have some breakfast with duck eggs in there, and I was quite surprised. I think it was in Greece where they don't have duck eggs. So that was a bit of a shock to me. But yeah, great question. Thank you very much. Let's go to the next question, which is about UK ruminant meat, which is grass-fed. Is all UK ruminant meat grass-fed? Are chickens / pork better than the US counterpart? Waitrose have a higher welfare section. Wondering if this is equivalent or closer to the grass-fed tag.
They're not all grass-fed. The chickens and pork are certainly not always. They can be. The beef and lamb is always grass-fed. The beef is, but it's whether the grass is fresh. So what I've found recently is that we can find grass-fed beef, but it's been fed grass that has already been stored as hay, if you like, and it's basically fed indoors. So it can be misleading sometimes in regards to some of the beef we consume, because the producers will say, yes, it's grass-fed. We instantly assume that these are animals that are wild outside roaming the mountains, and sometimes they're not. Most are. I think especially, I'm lucky. I'm lucky. I live in Wales, so make that what you will. But in regards to beef, the cattle are roaming. The sheep are roaming. Anyone who is driven through the Brecon Beacons will know that the sheep's the lamb, they're all over the road roaming free. I know lots of local farms. I see the cows in their field living their best life. But I would say in general that they are better quality than the US, unless you can source 100% grass-fed, which is available. In regards to the welfare tag, I don't know is the answer, but I am incredibly what's the word I'm looking for? I'd always question what big establishments are saying in regards to things. They say, I'm not saying that they are, but I would question the standards of what they're saying that they're adhering to, if that makes any sense. I don't shop from supermarkets anymore. My meats come from my local butcher who owns a local farm. He does bring in other meats from other farms, but I believe their quality to be superior. I thrive on theirs. If I eat supermarket meats, then I get a reaction almost instantly. So try to support your local butcher if you can, regardless of where you are in the world. But always remember that meat, animal proteins, are always going to be more beneficial than not eating them. In regards to nutrient profile, every vitamin and mineral within animal proteins is always going to be higher and more bioavailable than anything we can get from vegetables. And quite often, most of the vitamins and minerals that we think are found in vegetables don't actually exist in vegetables. I won't bore you guys too much with it because I've ranted on long enough about this, but if you want to, we can get into detail. But vitamin A, for example, doesn't exist in plants. True vitamin A is retinol, and plants contain beta-carotene. So the first on the list, vitamin A, doesn't exist in plants. Animal proteins, regardless of its origin, is always going to be more beneficial than eating plants.
Yeah, and I think just to clarify, because there will be some people that know there is a very, very small section of beef production which isn't grass-fed, and they use barley and wheat, and that's because they have limited pasture land, and I think that's just in very remote places. So I think we're being quite broad, but it is a huge percentage that is grass-fed. Secondly, just on the higher welfare thing, it's a bit like an admission that other parts of their shop are not higher welfare. So it's like when they say this is the health food section of a supermarket. Well, if you've got a health food section, what's the rest of the food then? Not healthy food. So if it's higher welfare, you want to say, well, actually, you should have just basically everything with this level of welfare for the animals. The thing that they've done is they've hooked up with the Royal Society of Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, the RSPCA, and the Global Animal Partnership, which is the GAP, and that's it. It's more transparent labelling, and it's just trying to be better for the animals. But in the end, I still think if you go to a farm shop, you're going to get better animal proteins. Right, okay. So my Healthy Supplies, by the way, says he's ordered some Keto Pro electrolytes and MCT power. They definitely confer a benefit to Lucy and myself, which is good.
Thank you very much.
It is nice, isn't it? And also, our butchers do duck eggs. Would you say they are more nutrient dense and better than chicken eggs if you can get access to them? Yes. That's that simple. I think we covered that. Andrew Bott, what's the difference between supermarket free-range eggs and branded?
All eggs.
I thought all chicken. Yes, I think it's the bird flu thing. I thought all chickens are free-range, but caged at night and fed on call. No, there is quite a difference actually between how they look after the chickens, what they feed the chickens. Supermarket chickens tend to be fed like a standardized diet of grains. The chickens that we get eggs from, which is a local farmer, they eat bugs, and they're proper free range, to the point where it used to be funny. The reason we actually found this farmer is because we first noticed a load of chickens on the loose on the verge where they'd escaped. And you can just tell the difference. And to be honest, Andrew, I mean, it really is this simple. If you find a free range box of eggs from a farmer, actually, go out, drive around and see if there's any eggs, and do a taste test straight away with some supermarket eggs, you'll be able to know that the ones from the proper free range are actually tastier. I think you just notice straight away. We always do. And you can get people to deliver these. So I think that's good. Let's have a look. Andrew said, I made a cheese omelette tonight with 4 egg yolks and 2 full eggs. Tasted really nice and more dense. Yeah, it's great. Omelettes are fabulous, actually, aren't they? So I'm going through tons and tons of really nice messages, but I'm looking for a question. Is the low salt brand of salt a good way to increase potassium intake? You see it in supermarkets. Is it potassium?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just searching for low salt now. I'm just looking. I mean, it's potassium chloride and sodium chloride. It contains anti-caking agents. The potassium chloride isn't the most bioavailable. I don't think there's anything wrong with consuming that if that's all you have access to. There's certainly worse on the market. Yeah, mixed opinions.
Yes. And so we got Yari now?
Yari.
Rich, how do you cook your lamb heart?
Yari, my man, looking forward to catching up soon. I oven cook them. I
had
them. Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah. Firstly, lamb heart. You can get 2 lamb hearts for about £1. Wow, which is really cheap. And what you do is you would trim them. So you would just get a very sharp knife, just like with any other meat, and you would just slice them. Okay, and you will know instinctively which bits to not cook. You will know. That doesn't mean it's grisly and horrible. It's just you can see the quality of the meat of the heart. Okay, so there'll be odd bits and pieces. It's a bit like if you've ever been cooking a bell pepper or something. You know the bits that you don't eat, and you know the bits you do eat. You definitely know instinctively. And I have got a video of me cooking lamb heart on my YouTube channel. Anyway, right. Then you warm up a pan, you put some lard in, and you just fry it. You just pan fry it. And wow, it's really tasty. It's certainly really tasty in comparison to the cost. And it's very nutrient dense. It's pretty fabulous. And most butchers, if they get it, will be glad that you buy it because otherwise they're going to throw it away. So this is why it costs £1 for a couple of them. And I would actually ask if you can get into your local butcher and say, look, I'm interested in lamb heart. Will you sell it to me? They'll sell it to you because otherwise it's going to go in the bin. So they'll love you for coming in. So that's great. Right. Black Mountain beef is the best when I'm on holiday in Wales. That was my choice for beef. Do you know what that is? Black Mountain beef, Rich?
Yeah, I've tried it. I can't remember the exact location, but yeah, it's I love my beef. That's all I tend to eat.
Right. Okay. Now we've got a super chat. And this is interesting for me, as in I didn't know about this, Richard. Bully Laden Swallow, which is a reference to a joke in a Monty Python movie, I think. But anyway, wanted to share the video, Vegans Cause More Animal Deaths and Environmental Harm. The Keto Pro version's gone. And Stephen's copy is member only or audio version. Is there an unlocked full video version I can share with friends? Thank you for all you do.
Yes. I removed this recently because I believe that it is causing major problems with visibility of my YouTube channel. Since Stephen and I launched this one, my subs and views literally dropped off a cliff. It was gearing up to be one of my most viewed videos on my channel, and then it just stopped. So I've made it private, so I can send you the link. I just wanted to see if I made the video private, whether or not it would stimulate further growth in the channel. But yes, in fact, I will pop the link into the chat, and if you want to share that would be fantastic because it's a fantastic video. At least Stephen and I think so.
Yeah. So you're going to. Oh, hey, my microphone's just broken. Are you? So you're going to sort that for a fully laden swallow?
I will get the link now. So it's still there. It's just a private link. Once I send the private link, anyone with that link can access that video. So I will post this into the chat, and anyone who wants to watch it and share that link should be able to do so, if I can find it.
Yeah, okay. Well, before you do that, I wondered if you wouldn't mind talking about the Carnivore Conference that that you're helping to organise. Have you got any details of that?
Yes, we do indeed. It's the Carnivore Conference, and I will post a link for that also. This takes place. This is a 2-day event. It's in the Peak District. It's over the weekend, the 14th and 15th of September. Accommodation is included if you want it to be. So there's different pricing options. Food is included, 3 meals per day. It's a fantastic event with it's jam-packed with incredible speakers such as Stephen, myself. We've got Dr. Abs speaking, who you guys were introduced to during the YouTube live. We've got Ben Hunter speaking. We've got, where else is there now? We've got Lee Coper speaking, Heather Foley, Phil Ascott, Jonathan, our friend Jonathan from Carnivore Muscle. So it's going to be jam-packed full of incredible speakers. It's an intimate event, which means you will get an opportunity to mix with the speakers in between sessions, outside sessions. It's going to be a close, knit, intimate event. I will pop the link below for that. Anyone who is looking for tickets, book now to avoid disappointment. But yeah, I can't wait. But there is another event we're doing also, isn't it? With Phil Ascott, yes, which is next month. So this one is in September, and Phil's event is August. I'll find the link for that also. That is in my email somewhere, unless you have it to hand, Stephen. But that's going to be a fantastic event also. You and I are speaking at both. Yeah, so super excited. So it would be fantastic to see some of you guys there. It'd be brilliant to catch up with the guys and girls that we've met previously, and to meet the rest of you should you wish to attend.
That's great. Ruth here has a very technical question, and it says here, I have MS and I'm on Ubegio. I don't know if I pronounce that correctly, because everyone pronounces it differently if you're New Zealander anyway. An immunosuppressant for T cells. Would I be wasting my time if I were to try Cerul's products, i.e. Stem Cell Enhance, just try to replace my T cells? No, it wouldn't. I mean, it wouldn't do that, but I just want to broaden that out actually to the treatment of MS. We have a few success stories of people reversing their lesions on MS, and I think the drug that you're on there is for relapsing forms of MS, and your T cells mistakenly sort of attack and damage your myelin sheath, and that's the thing that surrounds the nerve fibers. I don't think the Stem Enhance would actually do what you're worried about there, because it is basically adult stem cells can become anything. And it might actually improve your myelin sheath. I mean, this way of eating definitely does that, because there's more fats and there's more proteins available to rebuild structures in your body. And also you have that reduced inflammation. So I think it wouldn't be a waste of time, because you would not find that it is just replacing T cells. I think the drug would effectively just keep your T cell count down. But we're not doctors. I mean, this is just information. I obviously have a link for the Stem Enhance. But I think, Ruth, if you wanted to email me at zerocarbcoach@gmail.com, but I would rather have a longer conversation with you and just make sure you're happy if you are interested in it. Because it's not really the place to do like a one-to-one, because yours is very specific. But there is a lot to talk about as well, because we also talk about the things you're doing, see if your diet's working as well. I wouldn't charge you for this. I'm actually very, very interested in getting people healthy. And as you put that question in there, I wouldn't mind just asking you a few other things and see how you're getting on. So that would be great, if that's okay with everybody. Right. Unless you wanted to add something, Richard, sorry.
You are the Cerul expert. So, yeah, right. Fantastic.
Okay. Laney is saying, hi from Australia. Good day. I heard that you should only have a certain amount of protein at once. I eat 2 MAD in a 6-hour window. Is it okay to eat 60 grams of protein per meal in that eating window?
Yeah, most definitely. So it's in fact, the minimum amount that I tend to recommend is around 50 grams, give or take between 40 to 50 minimum. And this is to activate mTOR, which we associate with just muscle building. But when we activate mTOR complex 1, this allows us to build and heal and repair the body, not just muscle. But muscle is important. It's important for us to perform our day-to-day actions, not just lifting heavy weights. This is elicited through the activation of mTOR via leucine. And this is typically found in 40 to 50 grams on average. It does vary depending on the cut. That would equate to around 6 eggs, I believe, if you were looking from an egg source. But no, I consume 1 kilogram of meat per day. I'm nowhere near the size that I was when I was bodybuilding. I run and cycle now, so I'm half the size. 1 kilogram of meat is an awful lot. So that would equate to somewhere between 200 to 250 grams of protein per day, give or take, as a rough estimate. And I generally eat that over 2 meals. I do eat 3 sometimes. Sometimes I snack in between. I'm not as rigid in regards to my mTOR reset windows, which I used to implement for muscle building in particular. But now I just eat when I'm hungry. If I'm not hungry, I don't eat. But I like to eat when I do eat. So that entails probably over 100 grams per meal as an average. So yes, in short.
Yeah, and I think the myth of how much protein you can eat will never die because it's out there. But I've got studies where they're eating 100 grams of protein per sitting and still seeing improved protein synthesis. So that study, off the top of my head, actually says there seems to be no limit to the amount of protein that we can ingest and still get extra protein synthesis from. So, right, that's going to annoy a few people and get a few questions and comments, but I don't mind that. Right, okay. Juha is saying I have a high ferritin level due to my carnivore diet, but my hemoglobin is low at 124. How to improve it? I'm male, 58 years old. Right, people have high ferritin levels who are not on a carnivore diet. Having a high ferritin level could simply be what's called an acute phase reactant response. Your body is brilliant at being a fantastic immune system machine. And if you have an infection, by locking up the iron, and that's what ferritin is locked up iron, it's not bioavailable for a temporary period of time. The bugs that live off iron, because the things that invade you, they also need iron to survive, they die. So it's part of the immune response for some people, and that's something you look up. The ferritin level of a higher ferritin level is often just because it's the acute phase reactant. And you might say, well, I don't feel ill. And it's like, yeah, well, it's working. So that does happen. That's one of the things. You mentioned that your hemoglobin is low, which I understand because that's a transport of oxygen and iron, amongst other things. You really need a fuller panel to know what's going on with iron. So you need your total iron binding capacity, your transferrin saturation. There's so many things. Your serum iron is obviously an interesting thing. I've gotten here high ferritin level. Now, that's a pejorative term. High without any symptoms, or is it high with symptoms? So it is possibly one of those things where we need a little bit more information. If you're worried about locked up iron, but you're not fatigued, you don't look anemic, then what is the issue? That's the question I would like to ask. So I think it sounds like I'm telling you off, and I'm really not. I'm just trying to help you. We need more information. And secondly, we need to know why that has worried you, why that's been flagged. Are you having symptoms? So maybe those questions, you could do a follow-up.
Yeah,
so look,
definitely. Just to tap in, I think, the total iron binding capacity is going to be the big one. That's going to give an indication of the free ferritin or iron that's available to bind to the cell. When we look at things like anemia, there are lots of different types. 3 in particular. microcytic, macrocytic, and normocytic. The microcytic is when the blood volume measured in MSC, so the mean corpuscular volume, or MSV, mean cell volume, is probably written down as on the tests, which you'll be well afraid with, is measured in femtoliters, isn't it? And it's a normal range is 80 to 100. So a microcytic anemia would allude to that being lower. Macrocytic would be higher than 100, but then we can get normocytic, which means we can still be suffering with issues with iron, even though we're in a normal range. One of those in terms of what would be like a megaplastic anemia, which is a lack of, could be vitamin B12 or folate. But yeah, you can't determine that from one metric. I think all of the metrics that Steve has mentioned there, we would need to look at in order to give an educated answer. But pop those below. I mean, so list those again, Steve. Total iron binding capacity, the MSV, or the MCV, sorry. What else was there? There was
transferrin, and you want transferrin saturation. You could also do a reticulocyte count to check your red blood cell production, which incidentally is one of the things the Stem Enhance does help. Reticulocyte count looks at hemolytic anemia, which is if you are pale, it could be that your red blood cells are just dying too soon. It could be that simple. So there's lots of different things. You could also be inhibiting the absorption of iron. You could have too much dairy, too much tea, too much coffee, and you could be eating tons of red meat thinking, wow, I'm going to have an iron overload. And if you can't absorb it because you're eating things that inhibit it, then you're not going to get the iron into your cells. So it's a bigger subject than that one sentence. And I'm sorry if that sounds like we're telling you off. It's not. We're trying to educate people that you can't take one reading and think there's a problem. But do be driven more by symptoms and how you look. That's really, really important. If you look at me, I haven't got a filter on. I've got white lights in front of me and blue lights behind me. I'm not pale. So if someone said to me, your ferritin's really, really sort of high and your iron is low, I wouldn't feel that I'm possibly anemic because I'm not showing any clinical presentation. I'm not fatigued. I'm not struggling for breath. My heart rate hasn't gone up. There's lots of things. So anyway, hopefully that was helpful. You can always do a follow-up. Don't forget, you can book either of us for coaching. Richard is £1 cheaper per session than me. So if money is a game changer, there you go. So right, let's get into this. Oh, I think you're going to love this question, Richard. It's from Matthew. Hi, Matthew. Robert Sykes, who's known as the Keto Savage, by the way, and Sarah Zaldivar recommend reverse dieting for improving body composition for bodybuilding. Have either of you tried reverse dieting, and do you believe it's a good thing to try?
Yeah, look, the reverse dieting thing is, I believe, more prominent if you are consuming carb. The thing is, you restrict for so long coming into a bodybuilding competition, and there is the unwritten rule that once the comp is done, you stuff your face with whatever you like. And I've been guilty of doing this. And for weeks, like going shopping, you would pick up on the items that you would die in to consume, that you wanted to consume once the competition was over. And you'd carry and take this big bag or big box full of all these different goodies. And after the show, they have pizza and donuts and all this sort of thing. You've been restricting for so long. The second you put these compounds in, your body just holds all the water. You balloon. You have a distended belly, which happened to me. And I posted a picture on this in the early days. I gained something like 3.5 stone within like a week, purely through binging. But I was still lean. So I looked like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I had this big belly, this huge distended belly with abs ripped through. But it looked abnormal. Reverse dieting, I think, is important, especially in that case. When it comes to being carnivore, ketogenic, there's far less requirement to do so. I've never felt the need when I was strict. I just went back to eating normal. Our good friend, Alan Reeves, who won a competition recently, looks absolutely incredible. Alan's 50, best shape of his life. He looks like an Adonis. He's leaner now than I think he was on comp day, and he went back to just eating the way that he was prior, and there's no weight gain. I think he gained like 1 kilogram, and now he's lost that since, and this was 2 or 3 months ago by memory. So look, yes, it's a tool that you can use. I think it's one that we do not need to use as actively if we are carnivore. Probably more if we are keto, because we would be consuming compounds there that would elicit a higher insulin response. But it's incredibly hard to gain weight by eating carnivore. Just the sheer volume of food. It doesn't matter how much you've been restricting leading up to said event. When it comes to consuming animal proteins and natural fats, there's only so much you can eat. It's way easier to overconsume on sugars, carbs, all the seed oils, because these block our body's ability to tell us that we've eaten. They block leptin. They block our body's ability to tell us that we've had that compound, that food, and it leads to us feeling hungry. Not to mention the lectins and phytic acids, which also block leptin and the absorption of other vitamins and minerals. So our bodies are consuming these compounds that are heavy in energy, shall we say, but incredibly low in nutrients. So we're energy rich and nutrient low. So yeah, it is a tool. I think it's one that we don't need to push as much living carnivore, but for sure, yeah.
Yeah. Just going through the comments, sorry, I was listening, Richard, but a few people saying that they tried to click on that link for the video and it says private.
It should be working now. So I've seen those comments. I'll post it again now. Try again. To
the people that have tried, try again. Right, reverse dieting, which, basically is just increasing your calories, I suppose, is most basic. Have I tried it? Yeah, I tried it. I did that when I did my bodybuilding show. So, yeah, I just increased my calories gradually. I did it properly, I suppose. I didn't do what Richard said, go too mad. I did have a pizza straight after the show. That was when I was a high-carb athlete, and I thought I'd be all right and get away with it. I wouldn't do that now. With the knowledge I have now, I'll just gradually increase the volume of food that I was eating, and just eat to hunger and satiety signaling. So, yeah. Is it a good thing to try? Well, I think if there's a reason for you to do it in the first place, yes. But I don't feel if you're not bodybuilding or cutting or going down to an obscene amount of body fat percentage, I don't think you need to do it as a matter of course. How good is marrow fat for you? What's in it? What's it made up of nutrient-wise? I'm hoping it's got some calcium in it, as I'm strict lion. No dairy for a long time now. You get plenty of ability to make calcium on this way of eating. And it's interesting you put lion diet, because it always makes me tempted to use the lion analogy. If you've ever seen a pride of lions out in the wild, you've ever watched any nature or natural documentary about the life of lions, you will notice that the lioness, when they have cubs, can make milk and produce plenty of it for the cubs. And they do not have any calcium supplements. Where are they getting the calcium from? Well, I think they're getting it from red meat. And if you're following the lion diet, well, I'm telling you about lions. They're eating muscle meat, and they are never deficient in calcium. They are very strong. They have great bones, and they are able to produce milk. I'm going to hand over to Rich to do a little bit more, because I know he's chomping at the bit, and then I'll come back to add a little bit more about marrow fat.
Yeah, I was just going to tell the viewers, are you walking on your treadmill? Just one.
No,
you're not. Right, okay. I thought the bobbing back and forth, because you've got a treadmill in, haven't you?
Yes, I tried it. I did try it, and I found it very distracting. So okay. I'm going to have to do some sort of work without the video camera on, and do the treadmill, and then maybe do it during the lives. So
awesome.
Yes.
So look, I've got something put together actually that I wanted to cover in regards to a question that was put up last week. If you want to finish off the marrow fat benefits, I've got something that I want to share coming on from that in regards to calcium and other minerals, which I think is quite interesting. It led me down a dark hole, and I spent hours looking into this. So I'd like to share that when you've finished your piece.
Okay, well, I'm going to be really quick, because the marrow fat is the energy. It's an energy storing area around the marrow. It basically stores lipids, and it's a good source of energy. That's the first thing. But it has been recently discovered that it has an endocrine function. So marrow fat is now recognized as an endocrine organ. So it does secrete hormones and other sort of molecules that can influence what's going on. So I do think it's a good thing to eat. It does have some stem cells in there. So it's not a bad thing. And that's going to help with your bone and cartilage and fat cells. So I think marrow fat is good. I've actually just done a recipe for bone marrow as well, which is really simple. So you can go into a supermarket and get some bones, cost me £3, and then you can put those bones into the oven. I think in an hour later, you've got some fabulous bone marrow, which is full of goodies. It's, it's mainly fat, but essential fatty acids are really good. And it's brilliant actually as an addition, like a side. So you can have like a pork chop, and then you can dive into the marrow, the bone, get the marrow bone out, and have it. And I think it's a particularly nice treat. So yeah, you are going to talk about calcium now. So let's share that on the screen, and let's get rid of that question. I hope that was helpful about the marrow fat.
Let me zoom in a little bit more. So we, our good pal of ours, Jonathan Carnivore Muscle, queried the mineral ratios in regards to potassium, sodium, calcium, I believe last week. So it led me into investigating a few things. This is a slide of a presentation that we did when we spoke about oxalate dumping, if you remember. But it looks at the nature's ratios, if you like, of potassium. So what is this? This is based on 100-gram values of beef, strip steaks, ground beef. We've got calcium, copper, so on. So everything's in there. But what you can see is that the potassium compared to the sodium and the magnesium and calcium is considerably higher. So it's around 4 times higher, the potassium, than it is to sodium. And it's the same when we look at the ground beef. So this is meat in a sense, but we also, through our evolutionary period, we would have consumed the organ meats, every part of the animal, including the bones and the bone marrow. All of these things would have been consumed. So it isn't fair just to look at meat in that sense. So I've zoomed in possibly a bit too much there, but this looks at organ meats, and it compares the calcium, the phosphorus. We've got sodium, potassium, magnesium, and we can see the magnesium, for example, is considerably higher than the calcium. In almost every one of these organ meats, the potassium is considerably higher than the sodium. And again, playing into the ratios that we've mentioned a number of times. So what I've done is I've taken an average of these and I've put them into this spreadsheet, which again was the part of the presentation that we give a little while ago. And you can see me moving on the screen. That's fantastic. I was put off because I could see my cursor moving. So when we look at ground beef, lamb liver, and lamb in general, we can see the calcium is pretty low. The magnesium, depending on the cut, is slightly higher. We've got the sodium, and then the potassium is 4 times higher. So that ratio that we speak about of the potassium being 4 to 1 in regards to sodium. And what Stephen was getting at, and rightly so, was that we would have consumed the blood from the animals. So that led me down a path investigating and looking into what sort of ratios would we have found within the blood. But there are a few things to this. So what I've done, I've put these into this little spreadsheet. So I've looked and compared to cows, because this is what we eat now. I've got no way of looking back and looking at any animals that we would have consumed 40,000 years ago up to 2 million years ago. So I've looked at the animals that we consume today. Now, bearing in mind, if we look at an average cow, one cow will feed a person in excess of a year. So there's enough meat on a cow that we can consume and it'll keep us alive and kicking. Unless you are Jonathan or myself and eat lots and lots of meats, it may be less than this, but it's generally accepted that one cow will feed one person for a year. Obviously, we can't keep that cow as we would evolve in, but the whole tribe would have consumed that animal. So how many pints of blood would have been found within that animal? Well, in a cow, it's 60 pints. 60 pints of blood, give or take. So what I've done in this is I've put in the amount of calcium, potassium, and sodium, and I've split it per 100 grams, and I've multiplied it over the course of the year to show how much we would have consumed. Now, bear in mind, we would have consumed this blood as we consumed the animal. So there are a few things to keep in mind with this. We would have killed that animal, which means there may have been some blood loss anyway, but I haven't accounted for that. I've just assumed that all of the blood is there within the animal. How much of that blood would we have actually consumed? Now, that one animal isn't going to last a year, so we wouldn't be drinking this blood every day, as this animal lasts, but we would have had that animal and the whole tribe would have consumed this animal. So if one cow can sustain life with one person for a year, I've equated the amount of blood within that animal, because all of this would have been divided through the tribe. So everybody would have been having X amount of meat and drinking this much blood. So I think that's the only fair way to calculate this, is based on the amount of blood within an animal. We wouldn't have drunk blood from an animal that we hadn't killed. Does that make sense? So what I've done in there, the calcium, potassium, sodium, magnesium, I've put them both in from the blood, and I've added in the metrics from the meats and things that we've just looked in there within the beef, multiplied by 365 or divided by 365. And then this is how much we would have consumed in a year, and this is how much we would have consumed each day. Now, we would have consumed other things. This hasn't accounted for, maybe the marrow that we would have consumed, or other items of food that we would have consumed, because I believe that we probably would have eaten more than this. But what's important to look at in this is the ratios. So the ratios, regardless of the food, because we've established that these ratios exist within these animals across the board generally, these are the ratios that we need to look at. And as we can see, the potassium is still the predominator by quite some way. Potassium to sodium, it's still roughly 4-1, even accounting for the blood, the additional sodium and calcium that we would have consumed. That is still roughly a 3 to 4-1 ratio of potassium to sodium, with magnesium being next on the list, which is what we've said, and then it drops right back down to calcium. So it doesn't matter which way we spin this, whether we drank blood or not, whether we consumed mineral water or not. And the argument there is tribes would have been closer to the mouth of the river as it comes into the sea. So maybe we wouldn't have been at source, and all these things are diluted. But it doesn't matter which way you spin it. Those ratios still ring true, which just add weight to what I was saying previously in regards to the ratios. Now, calcium is essential. There are 6 compounds that we consume that make up every cell. Calcium is one of those compounds. So calcium is essential. We can't live without calcium. Every single cell in the body contains calcium, but it's the ratio of calcium. And I think that unless we have issues that require more calcium, and some of us do. I know Jonathan's requirement is therefore increased calcium. Most of us are not. And I think if we look at that from an evolutionary perspective, we need to eat as nature intended. And this is where I believe that we don't want to be prioritizing calcium, eat as nature intended, but there's plenty of calcium in all of the meats that we consume. We don't need to be topping up. And I still think that excessive amounts of calcium beyond the body's requirement could potentially be dangerous. But if we are looking at an evolutionary appropriate diet, it doesn't matter which way we spin it. These ratios are there as nature intended. Potassium predominates, sodium, super important. All of these are super important, but sodium drops right back down, magnesium, and then calcium. But what I find in modern life is the calcium is prioritized. Calcium is consumed in preference over potassium, which is incredibly low. The calcium depletes magnesium, which is essential. We need these at roughly equal ratios within the cell. So my point to this is just eat as nature intended. But potassium is incredibly important. Calcium, I think we don't want to be over egging, and I'll use that as an analogy because eggs are very high in calcium. We don't want to be over egging the calcium. There is a requirement, and it is essential, but it's found in everything that we eat. We don't need to be drinking milk and eating cheese for additional calcium. Eggs are a fantastic source. Beef is a fantastic source. We can get all of these through eating our animal proteins. And as you say, Steve, living a lion diet. It's found in beef. It's found in lamb. we don't need to look elsewhere for calcium unless you have a calcium deficiency.
Absolutely. Right. Now, if you're looking at the clock and thinking we're running out of time, don't forget tonight you can join our members. You can sign up for the school. There's a link in the chat. There's a link in the description to this video. If you want to see the next 30 minutes when we finish at 8 o'clock here on YouTube, then you can. One of the reasons we're doing this is because we were doing a sort of follow-up on Apple Crumble, a different platform, but we won't get enough people coming over there. So we thought we'd give some extra time to our beloved members that we've got already in the school community. And if you want to join in, then use that link. It's $4 a month, which is less than $1 a week, and you can cancel it at any time. Right. Now, this question, I am not sure what Finn Bear is sort of alluding to. I mean, my friend is concerned about the endothelium process on carnivore. How would I calm him down? I don't really know what you're alluding to if there's an alleged issue with the carnivore diet and the endothelium process. What does the endothelium do? And that might be what you're talking about. Well, it does a few things. It does blood clotting regulation. There's nothing in meat or fish or essential fatty acids that are going to make that worse. Certainly carbohydrates and plenty of sugars and stuff like that, we're going to have a bigger issue. It's a barrier, obviously, which again, you need those essential fats and you need those proteins. The glycocalyx is flattened. So the glycocalyx is a sort of fine hairs, basically, on the inside, and they flatten when you're eating carbohydrates. So that barrier function's gone. There's also the angiogenesis, the production of red blood cells and blood vessels. That's all improved on carnivore, which is why I constantly talk to people about the reticulocyte count, because we can prove that red blood cell production is more efficient, actually. There are more red blood cells floating around, but they last longer. So, it is great. So it's good for the body. The endocrine function of the endothelium is improved. I mean, everybody that we speak to seems to have much improved hormonal regulation. So I don't think there's anything that we need to address. What about you, Richard? Do you think there is anything?
No, I mean, I don't know which process Finn Bear's alluding to. I mean, it's the only one I can think of is maybe the effect of the damage to the arterial walls potentially. But I mean, it's again, we can get into that in regards to cholesterol and so on and so forth. But if you want to chuck in the comments in regards to the processes that you're alluding to, then we can look a little bit deeper. But everything seems to be improved on a carnivore ketogenic based lifestyle. I was speaking to a friend recently, and I look at what the lifestyle has done to me. So I used to be type 2 diabetic, clinically obese, suffered with chronic fatigue, depression, anxiety, arthritic pains, daily debilitating migraines would make me blind. In my mid to late 20s, I could barely walk up a flight of stairs without stopping or being severely out of breath. Living this way has allowed me to achieve incredible things, including a European Championship at a pro level in men's physique bodybuilding. And now I've gravitated into running and cycling. My health, I'm 40 now, and I'm fitter and healthier than I've ever been. Now, that is just me. That's N equals 1. But then you're also an N equals 1. And everyone who's listening these numbers begin to become statistics. Everybody I speak to who lives the lifestyle sees huge benefit across the board in regards to everything that they come to see me about. There's only positives that I see to this. I don't see any negative once you get your head around eating animal proteins and avoiding the toxic compounds in regards to the grains and the seed oils, which are the biggest predominators in regards to ill health. If you're eating some vegetables, then that's fine. But it's the lifestyle without vegetables is going to be more beneficial, and we can get into more detail in regards to that. But I've only seen positives. These somebody messaged me recently asking about the damaging long-term effects of a ketogenic lifestyle, and my answer was, well, there aren't any. What are the long-term effects? They're all positive in regards to my personal experience and the people that I've worked with. I've been living this lifestyle for over a decade. And my health and well-being has just improved. I did a run today, my furthest ever run. As you know, Steve, I'm new to running. So my furthest run to date was a half marathon. And I ran just over a half marathon by about half a mile. But it's still the furthest run that I've ever done to date. I ran this at just over 7-minute miling, and it was a comfortable zone 2 run, which was the equivalent of my best half marathon time going back a few months ago. I'm getting fitter. I'm getting healthier. I'm recovering better. My cognition's improving. All of these things that I used to suffer with have gone away. I could never go back. So there's only positives for me. Only positives.
Yes, and I think that's the thing. There are hundreds of thousands of success stories. Right, so let's have a look. I'm struggling tonight with getting my words out. Maybe at 60, Carnivore has done it for me. But anyway, I think it's the fact I'm standing on the treadmill, but it's not going. I wish it was. Anyway, Gaz is saying, hi, chaps. Help me convince Kayla and Joshua Bart K is worth following, right? Well, I think he's worth following. Always worth following. I really do. So,
yeah, me too.
What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, for sure. Right. But look, there's you and I are pretty well versed, I think, between us. I think we can cover most bases, but Bart K is fantastic to follow. All of the guys on Carnivore GB are brilliant to follow. Amazing information. Jonathan, Ben, Phil, Kent Carnivore. We've I think we all add something new to the mix. But any questions that you can think in particular, Gaza, get them to pop them in, get them to join the school group, and we can do a proper sort of 1-to-1, or 1 to 20 or 2 to 20, I guess it should be with the amount of viewers. But yeah, fantastic ways to get questions answered.
Yeah, and I just want to just do a screen share for people that do actually join today very quickly. I'll show you the window, how easy it is to then see what's going to happen. So what will happen is when you join, you will see this welcome screen, and you just look at the top and you will see it says there's a live, ask us anything. That's us now, right? Happening now, live. And you can then go into the calendar at the top and you will see there's an 8 o'clock one, and you just click on that, and at 8 o'clock we will be there. So that's it. It's really that simple. Really is that simple. So anyway, okay, let's get rid of that. Let's go back to the questions. Is it normal to gain weight on a carnivore diet and not see any muscle mass?
Go on, Steve, sorry.
Well, yes. I mean, you can gain weight on any way of eating, really. If you eat too much of the wrong thing, you ignore your satiety signals. That would be one way. You're not listening to your hormones and you're just mechanically following something that you think you should do. That's one way. Another way is getting the macronutrients wrong. Another way is adding things that aren't carnivore but you think are. So there's many things you could do. You could have too many artificial sweeteners in a day and keep doing that. You could have some carnivore products, but you haven't read the ingredients properly. For instance, sausages. You might think sausages, well, they're good. I eat sausages, but I don't eat them that much because they have seed oils in the mix. So you have to have a very high percentage of meat in the sausage. So there could be things that you're eating, but it's not normal to gain weight on a carnivore diet. That doesn't seem to be muscle mass. If you do gain weight, normally it is bone density and muscle mass. But yes, you can gain fat, definitely, if you are doing the wrong things. What do you reckon, Richard?
Yeah, look, it's something that I've noticed is common in people who need healing.
Yep.
Some people go through a phase of, once we remove the toxins, the body goes through a healing phase. And it takes time to do this. It just takes time to feed the body the nutrients it needs to undo the damage. We've had a lifetime of abuse until we've come to this way of living. It's not going to disappear in 2 days, 1 week, 2 weeks. It's going to take time. And quite often I find that some people will gain weight when their bodies are going through this healing process. But it's perfectly normal. But it could be any one of the things or a number of things that Stephen and I have mentioned. But what I would say is that, once you have reset the body, once leptin has been reset, once you start to listen to the satiety signaling. It's difficult to gain weight on carnivore, bad weight at least. But it's also important to remember that we build bone from eating protein. Bone is mineralized protein. And when we gravitate into a carnivore lifestyle, we're consuming way more protein. We're consuming salt, which we need to build bone. In fact, we can't send calcium to the bone without sodium. We eat protein. All of these things build bone. And I know this sounds silly, but we can gain weight by healing and repairing the bone. The muscle and everything else begins to repair, but you can gain body fat because the body isn't efficient at using fat for energy, shall we say. It's the whole gut microbiome needs to change. It goes through a process of die-off, and it can lead to a number of issues. But I wouldn't say it's normal, but it does happen. Particularly if you are coming from a lifestyle of abuse, to what better term. But I do believe consistency is key. Consistency is key. Stick with it, and these things will. I believe that they will sort themselves out.
That's brilliant. Now then, so thanks to the people that have joined tonight onto the school community. We have got a few questions, and we will do those in the next 30 minutes. So we've got questions about polyps in the colon. We've got how do we gain weight? So there you go. This is the weird thing. We've had somebody worried about gaining weight, and there's somebody that isn't gaining weight and wants to. We're going to look at PUFAs in chicken, why triglycerides go down with carnivore, and we're also going to look at maintaining weight. So that's going to be in the next 30 minutes. For the people that have asked those questions, and that's my question, don't worry. If you haven't joined school and you don't watch the next 30 minutes, at some point it will be on my YouTube as a playback, and you will be able to hear it as an audio playback. So anyway, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you for the next 30 minutes over in our school community.
See you shortly.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Your support means the absolute world to me, and if you're enjoying this show, I've got a small favour to ask you. I'd be incredibly grateful if you would consider becoming a supporter and make a small monthly donation. Your contribution will really help to improve the show. I'll be able to improve the software, maybe put a few more episodes out, and do many things that I'm hoping to do in the future. Do them a lot quicker. So, it's a small monthly contribution. You can cancel at any time, and the link is in the show notes. Thanks very much for listening.